It's funny, I just always wanted to be a priest. I remember being about 4 years old, wanting to be a priest, and 8 years old, wanting to be a priest. I just never thought of any other options. Some young men growing up think, oh, I want to be a policeman or a fireman or a doctor or whatever. But I never thought of any other profession except being a priest. I'm Father Mark Woodruff. I've been a priest for 48 years. I came from a very Catholic family, particularly on my mother's side, we're the Irish side. Very, very Catholic, very committed to the Catholic Church. Sunday Mass was important. Catholic schools was important. And growing up with that, I grew up with a real love of the Church. It's funny that our good family times were centered around Christmas and Easter, and even holy days, because we had a lot of religious things in our house. I remember the papal blessing of Pope Pius XII hanging in an honored place. We had statues and crucifixes and Bibles, all of those things. One of the inspirational persons in my life was my uncle, who was a Jesuit priest. And of course, we felt very special having a priest in the family. We actually had two priests in the family at the time. One was a Monsignor. I never really met him, but I knew about him. And these are the people that really inspired me, I think, to think about priesthood. It seemed to be a very normal part of my life. I remember one time I was in Abilene, and I got a call from the hospital, and they said, this woman wants to be anointed. And so I said, well, I'm on my way to San Angelo, but that goes past the hospital. I'm going to stop there, and I'll anoint her. We had a lovely conversation. She said, I'm ready to go. She said, I want the Lord to take me. And I said, well, as long as you put it in the Lord's hands, that's fine. And I anointed her, and we prayed together. And then as I was leaving, she said, well, I'm going to finish watching the baseball game. And she turned the TV on and watched the baseball game. Well, I drove to San Angelo, which is about an hour and a half later. I got to the retreat center, and the secretary at the retreat center said, Father Mark, there's a phone message for you. The hospital called that woman you anointed just died, and she wanted you to know. That was very touching, to be with someone in the last minutes of their life, to be talking to them about God and heaven. That was very, very, very moving. I could quote a lot of stories like that as a priest. In West Texas, I think we are fortunate in that we have many small parishes and small communities where the priest can really get to know his people very well, know them on a personal basis, know the names of everybody, recognizing maybe a new person who comes to church on a given Sunday because he's familiar with the faces of his congregation. And I think we're somewhat blessed in that. The priest can have a real close relationship with his people. I'm assuming that in big cities, for example, when you have these humongous parishes of 5,000 families and so, it might be very difficult for a priest to have that kind of relationship. But in the Diocese of San Angelo, it's not that way. Even our biggest parishes are relatively small, and the priest can get to know the people well and feel their support and friendship. And West Texas is kind of a spread out area, but you still have a lot of friends just from your parish. I suppose even the smallest parishes I've been in, I've always felt surrounded by people whose company I've enjoyed and whose support I've received. And it's wonderful to be on the faith journey with them. I think the spirituality of a diocesan priest really starts with the Eucharist, and because we celebrate so many Masses, as priests, it's not unknown for them to do 3 or 4 Masses on a Sunday in West Texas. Sometimes you do 2 or 3 Masses even a day if you have funerals or other activities. So the celebration of the Mass is the center of my spiritual life. Also, the preparation of homilies, reading spiritual works and things, Bible studies, whatever, to prepare for a homily is in itself a spirituality. You're not just looking for something to say, but you're preaching to yourself first, and then preaching to others. So I would say it's a spirituality that way. We don't have as much time as priests for holy hours or contemplative prayer or living in a cloistered monastery or hermitage. Our priestly diocesan spirituality is really related very much to people and to be celebrating with them. So it's a community spirituality, I would say. I used to tell the story about how I was in the seminary. The Mass was still, right before I went to the seminary, the Mass was all in Latin, and I had a hard time with the Latin. And I was thinking that one thing that would prevent me from being a priest is I don't know the Latin. And I think that's when my mother said, God will help you in every way possible. And so, and God did, because he went to the Vatican Council and he told the council, drop Latin, just so my son Mark can be a priest. That's a little joke, really, but God smooths the way and helps the guy that he wants to be a priest. So I just say, go with it, trust it, give it a chance, and see if you like it. And if seminary works for you, that's great. You don't decide to be a priest in the first moment. It's later on. It's a discernment. Takes time, but just give it a chance, and God will speak to the young man who's maybe being called to be a priest.